Because of the following special program, Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
Let me ask you something, and this is a question I've wanted to ask you for a while, and I've always restrained myself.
Yeah.
A Christmas special came out that was produced by George Lucas, in which all of the participants in Star Wars came together and they made this Star Wars Christmas special, and the tape's been passed around for years, and the rumor is that Lucas is trying to suppress it.
It all started in 1978 when I let people make a Star Wars TV special without me.
The holiday special, I remember.
It came out so bad. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
George.
After all these years, Lucasfilm is still saying, Margaret, we shouldn't talk about that.
Do you remember making this Christmas special? No, you don't remember it?
Nobody is allowed to mention this.
It is so bad, it's not good.
You are about to see the worst half hour of television ever.
Star Wars. Star Wars is going to be on TV, and it's a new thing?
Oh, I see.
It's the Star Wars Holiday Special.
We popped it in, and my life was never the same.
Come on, Mala, let's see a little smile.
It will provide many years of fun.
I felt a great disturbance in the Force.
We rolled a doob and sat back and watched it, and we thought it was fabulous.
I fear something terrible has happened.
To explain the Star Wars Holiday Special is like trying to explain to someone how the pyramids were built. It's kind of impossible. All you have to know is it was the 70s. There might have been some cocaine.
Happy Life Day.
I saw it as a kid. I thought it was great.
They didn't tell the people this was not Star Wars the movie 2.
Say that again.
Seems we've landed on some sort of comedy variety show planet.
The Star Wars Holiday Special is sort of like the Holy Grail.
It's completely mental.
So funny and so stupid.
I love the holiday special.
The holiday special is definitely canon.
You probably wouldn't think that Maude would be one of the guest stars.
And I was never into the whole Star Wars thing.
I love all of the awkwardness.
I am your fantasy, so experience me.
The whole production was fraught with problems.
The ship you seek. Follow me, friend.
That Boba Fett cartoon rules.
Settle down.
The Star Wars special sucked so bad, I was amazed that I wasn't in it.
I would really like to know what CBS was thinking when they greenlit this thing.
But now, let's get started, shall we?
There are always better stories about failure than success. It's much more interesting. It's much more compelling, and it's much more human.
Supposedly a TV movie existed, and no one knew where they could get it. I had never seen it. You couldn't convince me it was true. To me, it was all urban legend.
But now that I was a 9th grade man, I wanted something you couldn't find in any store.
Yo, Golner, come here.
It was like finding this artifact of something that I was such a fan of, but I had no conception ever existed.
Yeah, and for a while, I believed that it was impossible to get.
It became a currency of sorts in geek culture, you know, talking about it, dropping references to it, producing a copy to watch.
Christmas came early. He had a bootleg copy of the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Holy Kenobi, the legend is true.
I had to get like a tape of a tape of a tape, you know. The Zapruder film was easier to watch than the copy of the holiday special that I got.
On the back cover, it said, if I had a hammer and time, I would destroy every copy of the Star Wars Holiday Special, George Lucas. And I was like, sold.
That was so cool.
Were we watching two different things?
You don't know Star Wars. This special is really for the true fans.
So the true fan wants to watch Dorothy from the Golden Girls flirt with an alien.
We have seen something that we weren't supposed to see. Clearly, something had gone wrong.
You were in the area because you were in Hollywood making a Star Wars special that would play around Thanksgiving.
Got all the characters from Star Wars, and it's got quite a few extra people as well. For one thing, you meet the whole Wookiee family.
And the Wookiees lived up in the treehouse, and that's where we met Chewbacca's family. Itchy, the little kid, and what was her name? Jawa?
Itchy is the grandfather.
Itchy's the grandfather. Who's that? Oh, Lumpy's the kid. I'm so sorry. It's only been 40 years.
Chewie's family had to be named something.
Lumpy and Itchy? Couldn't they have spent 15 more seconds on the names?
And we meet Chewie's family, and we realize that, oh, they're just gonna all chew it, not talk. And so you're literally watching a bunch of mimes.
But you just have zero dialogue up until this point for 15 minutes. Like, have you time to? I would love to know that stat. How much of the Star Wars Holiday Special has absolutely no discernible dialogue?
R2, look. It's Chewbacca's family.
Let's never speak of this again.
So you didn't love it. Who cares?
I care. I love Star Wars. It's my life. It makes no sense why I didn't love this too.
You know, we spent years of 2 weeks at a time working directly with George, developing what would become this animated series. And we had access to the theater downstairs. And we made a date, all the writers, hey, we're gonna watch the holiday special. And you tap out anytime you want. Like, we're gonna see who can make it all the way through. And that's what we did. And like one by one, like flies, people were like, I'm out.
I like to watch bad stuff, but that's a hard watch making it through the holiday special.
The cockpit of the Millennium Falcon is clearly just a cardboard cutout, and everything just, it takes you a while to realize that everything's wrong.
When you first see the Star Wars Holiday Special in its entirety, you're like, how did this happen? Who decided to create one of the most confounding pieces of Star Wars entertainment in the history of its existence?
In order to understand how the holiday special happened, you have to put it in context.
Star Wars pioneered a whole different kind of almost grassroots attention.
The real secret to the success of Star Wars was a guy named Charlie Lippincott, who pioneered an entirely new way of marketing movies.
Oh, Charlie was a good guy. He had kind of an oddball sense of humor. You know, he went to film school at USC.
I don't remember Charlie ever making any movies, but Charlie was involved with all of the filmmakers and keeping track of everyone. He was like a den mother. But when I learned shortly thereafter that Charlie was becoming a publicist, it made perfect sense to me.
I'm talking with Charlie Lippincott, who is associated with the production. Charlie, could you tell us exactly how are you associated?
I'm the executive in charge of advertising, publicity, promotion, and merchandising for Star Wars Corporation.
Charlie had come up with the idea of marketing Star Wars directly to fans because there really wasn't a good hook for marketing Star Wars. Science fiction wasn't popular. None of the actors were big names that you could get booked on The Tonight Show.
A year before Star Wars came out, Charlie went and showed slides about this movie and got this amazing groundswell. Fandom was never really a part of the marketing plan until Charlie Lippincott made it so.
Even though he didn't have footage to show them, he would show them like Ralph McQuarrie's artwork. He would tell them the story of what the film was about.
He went to the Star Trek conventions and got the Trekkies interested in it. And this is something right up their alley. The idea is if you get the enthusiasm with them, that will spread. These are the kind of people that will see a movie 10 times if they like it.
I'd like to introduce you now to producer Gary Kurtz. And the star of the film, Mark Hamill, plays Luke Skywalker.
He knew how to get people excited and how to stir up interest and word of mouth. And from these science fiction conventions, people left being interested to see what this film was going to be like. And then they would tell their friends about it.
Ballantine Books was one of the major houses in paperbacks, major publisher in science fiction. Charlie went to them and made a deal to do a novelization of Star Wars and have it come out like 9 months before the movie came out to get it out there. And then Charlie made a deal with Marvel Comics to do the comic bookization of Star Wars.
And the real problem, I think, in some ways, was I didn't want one comic book, and I didn't want two comic books. I wanted 5 to 6 comic books telling the story of the film. So that was a bit of a hard sell at first. And I wanted at least 3 issues out before the film came out. And nobody had done that up to that time.
Basically, everything with Star Wars that wasn't making the movie was Charlie.
He taught Hollywood a very important lesson that they are still learning from today.
9 months after Charlie started these fan promotions, the movie comes out.
To the world-famous Chinese theater come the stars of the biggest box office success in motion picture history.
Star Wars. It is more than just a successful movie. It is a box office phenomenon. The film is breaking attendance records all over the country. Not since Jaws have so many people stood in line to see a movie.
It was kind of like a nuclear explosion had gone off in pop culture. It blew people's minds. I mean, I remember people waiting in line all day to see this movie.
Star Wars became the new box office champion by providing pure 100% escapist entertainment. And it appears this is what just about everybody in the country is in the mood for.
You know, this was world-changing.
It's like the Beatles.
I mean, we'd all seen science fiction movies before, but not like this.
It only opened in America at the end of May, but already it's the biggest box office hit in cinema history. The overwhelming success of the picture surprised everybody. As one Fox executive put it, it's not so much a film, it's more an industry.
I love the world between Star Wars and Empire. The world between Star Wars and Empire, to me, is this bizarre, it's not completely thought out. There's no mythology built up.
For the fans, it's interesting in many ways. One of the ways, it gives them an insight into this very brief period where things were not set up yet. And it was kind of like Lucasfilm 1.5. 1.0 was over, but 2.0 wasn't there yet.
And it wasn't until Empire forward that everything became more fully formed. So I have a real affection for that time where it was this wild thing that nobody could figure out.
So somewhere in the summer after Star Wars has come out, George takes a meeting with Frank Wells of Warner Brothers with Gary Kurtz and Charlie Lippincott. The goal of that meeting was to re-release THX to try and piggyback on the success of Star Wars. Somewhere along the line in that meeting, Frank said something to George to the effect of, come September, you guys will be nothing.
And George left really angry. And so it kind of redoubled George's interest in making sure Star Wars succeeded and continued to be in theaters.
To promote Star Wars, getting the stars of Star Wars to appear on all of these talk and variety shows. Donnie and Marie, or any of these other places. The Star Wars Holiday Special may well have been created out of spite.
My brothers were dressed as the stormtroopers dancing. I'm Luke, and Marie's Leia with the bagels on the side of her head. Han Solo, played by Chris Christopherson, and I'm dancing around R2-D2, and there's C-3PO, and we're talking, and Chewbacca's there. And I'm thinking, this is probably one of the coolest finales we've ever done.
His transistors are in trouble and his tubes are weak. And if we stay, our chances for survival are bleak. So show us the way to get out of this world, for that's where everything is.
I'm thinking, how in the world is George Lucas allowing this to happen? Because that's just so far from the movie. But it sure was funny at the time, and it's funny to look back right now.
Push a few buttons, light the fire. Gonna take it higher.
We broke a lot of rules when we had the Star Wars characters on the Donnie Marie show for that finale. There was a shot with Chewbacca with his arm around Darth Vader. Oof, how does that happen? But on Donnie Marie, I guess everybody was friends.
Come back to me. Come back to me. Come back to me.
Star Wars Holiday Special is Citizen Kane compared to that Donnie Marie thing. I mean, that's truly train wreck sort of television.
You intergalactic fool. You never get them back that way.
I suppose you have a better plan.
No plan at all. Just a little force.
You can't imagine that happening in 1981. Like that, Star Wars couldn't have gone near a show like that in 81. But in 77, everyone's going, I don't know what this is or how big it's going to be, but yeah, take it, go, put it on a T-shirt or whatever. Put it in your show. Do a dance with the Stormtroopers.
I think that's one of the coolest moments my brother's ever had in show business was transforming stormtroopers to vaudevillian dancers. That's so funny.
So the public appearances helped the ticket sales in the theaters.
They had the entire family watching the Donnie and Marie show. George wanted to tap into that magic. We had the demographics that he wanted. And through research, he was right. And that Donnie and Marie show aired, and everybody saw Star Wars characters on Donnie and Marie, they went back to the theater.
It's almost as if at that time in the entertainment world, there were like 2 tracks. It was like for entertainment. And it had been going on since the silent movies where you did your kind of high art form, which was the movie, and then you did a lot of stuff to support it, whatever it took. If you had to put on the disguise in front of a shopping mall, you did it. And they did it for Star Wars.
George was about to start shooting The Empire Strikes Back, and he was concerned that there be momentum, that there be a stirring the pot to make sure people were aware of the franchise.
And you saw the proliferation of Star Wars on television in the late 1970s and 1977, specifically on these variety shows, as a way to keep Star Wars cemented in the zeitgeist.
Prior to that, the big movie was Jaws, right? But you couldn't just throw Jaws onto a thing. Like, ladies and gentlemen, Jaws is here to sing.
In retrospect, I think it's exceptionally foolish because the brand was not going to die. It was very, very popular. Somebody somewhere said, you know, if we don't give them something, they're going to forget about us.
And suddenly it's everywhere on TV after that. Like, just the promotion was everywhere you looked.
Let's crank out as much stuff as we can. Let's let Richard Pryor have all the alien makeup for a Cantina sketch on his show. That sketch actually kind of works. It's Richard Pryor in that world, and he's using it to ding riffs on race and social class and stuff like that.
Hey, why don't you watch where you're going? You got the biggest eyes in the place.
Also, these characters weren't embedded in our consciousness the way they are now. We'd met them once in one film. It's not like we'd gone on, you know, a 9-film adventure with R2-D2 and we know the parameters of R2-D2 or how he would speak, or C-3PO.
Hello, welcome to Burger Show.
We'd like a Star Wars poster, please.
Or even Darth Vader.
With guest appearances by Darth Vader.
Humongous.
We'd seen them once in that film, and that was the only voice we knew. So the fact that Darth Vader was being lampooned, or that the droids were doing things out of context, or even Mark Hamill was doing something in a different way.
Bob Hope's All-Star Christmas Comedy Special, starring special guest star Mark Hamill.
It's more egregious now looking back than it was, I think, at the time. It was a very normal way of getting it out there. And Star Wars embraced that opportunity.
It's Luke Skywalker. Did you bring the Force?
You better believe it. The Los Angeles Police Force.
How did you find them?
Now you're all under arrest for malicious mutilation of a marvelous movie.
I should have stuck to looking for Mr. Goodbar.
Any kind of artwork out of context is going to look funny. Any kind of artwork. Any kind, period. If you don't know the history and the context, you cannot appreciate it fully.
This was in the days of crazy specials, you know. Wayne Newton at SeaWorld. Wayne, meet Shamu. Kids, let's do a show.
From Orlando, Florida, it's Wayne Newton at SeaWorld. And special guest appearance by Shamu the Killer Whale.
Hello, King Kong. Meaner than a junkyard dog. When 70s TV was bad,
There was no description for it.
I mean, it's corny and it's stupid. That's kind of what it was.
Everybody had a variety show. Howard Cosell had a variety show.
You know what's going to make this show work? Yours truly, the born superstar.
Didn't Shields and Yarnell have a show? They were mimes, and they did something on Donnie and Marie, and it was popular, so they went, well, give them a show. Let's see if it works. At least 70s television was way more in touch with, hey, no one knows anything. Oh, didn't work. Well, we tried. Like, they don't know. They don't know.
It became a way to bring the family together in front of the television set without fully satisfying any one member of that family.
It was disposable television. People are going to see this once, and that's it.
Variety shows did not repeat well. They look arcane today.
The funny thing is, if you think the Star Wars Holiday Special is bad or the worst thing that ever aired on TV, you never saw The Lawrence Welk Show.
And that calls for a little soul music.
You never saw the Paul Lend Halloween special.
Move it in, move it out, move it in and about, disco baby.
You never saw the Brady Bunch variety show.
There's a new kind of dancing, it's gonna be the rage. You just move yourself behind like an actor on a stage.
Brady Bunch Variety Hour and the Paul Lynde Halloween special, those stand out because they are so bad. But there are other ones that are forgotten just because they weren't even memorably bad.
There are astronomically worse shows that aired around this time. They just didn't carry the name Star Wars.
The Star Wars Holiday Special happened, again, for multiple reasons. CBS approached Lucasfilm wanting to do it.
We talked to George at one point about how this happened. You don't like this piece of content. How does anything that you don't like or you didn't approve of get through? He's like, it's not that I didn't approve of it. There was so much pressure in between Star Wars and Empire. The way that executives thought about the audience is that everyone would just forget Star Wars was a thing. The audience, they just can't be dependent upon. So you gotta make some other kind of short-term Star Wars content. What kind of TV show can you make on the kind of budget it takes to make Star Wars? And they're like, holiday special.
And this was a way, a TV special to get mass exposure, to get more excitement until Empire comes back, and certainly would help the toys.
Star Wars, the toys came later on. They were ill-prepared for how successful the movie was going to be.
Because there was no such thing as merchandising on movies. Some TV stuff, but not movies. Their lifespan is just too short.
Back then, by the time you would get a toy line out, it would be 12 months to 18 months after the movie already left theaters, and nobody would remember the movie, so nobody was willing to take that risk.
The official Kenner Star Wars models are still in production in the Orient and won't be ready for several months.
First Christmas, every kid in America wants a Star Wars toy, but they had nothing to sell for Christmas. And so what they did was they sold you a coupon that you would send in, and once the toys had been made, they would ship you a set.
But in 1978, the toys were everywhere. And this was the first Christmas where you could get Star Wars toys, Star Wars everything, and a key component of marketing that was the Star Wars Holiday Special.
May the Force be with you and your children.
Our agent called and said that there's a Star Wars Holiday Special. And we got really excited because we thought this was going to be our annuity, that this holiday show would run every year for an eternity. The Charlie Brown Christmas, the Grinch That Stole Christmas, I mean, all of these things that'll be on forever. As it turned out, it was only one viewing.
So the people who wrote the special, and there were a bunch of them, were not science fiction people. They weren't Star Wars fans. I don't know if they all had even seen Star Wars. They were people who wrote variety. And that's what this show was. It just happened to be themed to Star Wars.
I mean, you have to remember, we were comedy writers. And to get into something like this was really thrilling.
And I said, where do I sign? And it was fun from the beginning. And the first day, it was the staff, Lenny Rips and Pat Proft. They were there, and Ken and Mitzi Welch, who were writers from the Carol Burnett Show, who did all the big musical things, and George Lucas, and Gary Smith and Dwight Hemian, who were actually allegedly producing it, but they didn't really produce it in the end. When I was looking at the credits on the show and I saw that they had it was a Smith-Hemian, because I don't remember them being there, but they were at the beginning when I thought about it.
And the other thing was we worked with his director, a guy named David Akamba, who was a director of rock and roll videos. He made a successful rock and roll documentary. There was that USC connection. David was the voice of George. If David had an idea or we wanted to run something by him or there were questions, our assumption was that it's also what George wanted.
My intent was to see what George wanted and try and make it happen. But quickly there were, Ken and Mitzi were assigned to the show, whom I didn't know, and then when I found out what they did, but they wrote the music for the singing numbers in that. I just thought that was one of the worst parts of the show when she started singing and all those kinds of the fake Broadway show, forgettable show tunes. The wrong people to be assigned to work with me or vice versa.
The film industry and the variety television industry are completely two separate animals.
I hear that David did not get along with the Welches, and I didn't realize that because I wasn't in the room with them when that was happening. But that was the team.
What's so unique about the Star Wars Holiday Special is not just that they have the costumes and the permission to use everything that we know of Star Wars, but they actually got the cast of Star Wars.
When I read it, I said, this is awful. Why are we doing this? I said, I'm not doing this.
It was in my contract. There was no known way to get out of it.
Oh, right. But I'm not singing.
They all slum it for a TV special. Again, I have to imagine the paychecks made it worth it.
The talent was supposed to be the caliber of Cher, Baryshnikov, and Anne Margaret. That was the people that they had hoped would be on the variety show.
I didn't think it was going to be so much of a traditional variety show. It never occurred to me that Harvey Korman and B. Arthur and Art Carney were going to be in it.
Yes, they were TV stars, but they were the elderly audience, CBS audience TV stars.
It always occurred to me as something that was put together by old TV. What is this? Star what? Whatever. Where's Captain Kirk? Bring in, who we need? Art Carney. He's a TV legend.
You felt like they could have had cooler, hipper people that they would have brought in to do these various parts.
Ken and Mitzi were old school, and they were used to doing it a certain way, and David wasn't crazy about that.
So there's an interesting rumor about the Star Wars Holiday Special, which I've always found fascinating, which is that David Akamba was scouring improv clubs looking for great acts that could appear in the special and came across Robin Williams. This was after he had already been Mork on Happy Days, but before he had gotten Mork and Mindy on the air. And he brought Robin to the Welches, who immediately turned him away and said, we're only looking for name talent. About a month later, Mork and Mindy airs, and Robin Williams explodes and could have been a part of what made the Star Wars Holiday Special fantastic.
They just weren't on the same wavelength, and David felt that he was on George's wavelength and that they weren't. And they were there because there had to be professionals who had done this kind of thing before, who knew what the requirements were.
And George came up with the original story. It was going to be a 1-hour special.
Now, the Star Wars Holiday Special that we know didn't start off the way that we experience it. It actually started off, I think, from a much purer place, which is George Lucas trying to write a variety holiday special, or at least just a holiday special.
So after Ralph McQuarrie passed in 2012, they discovered in his archive a 5-page treatment for the Star Wars Holiday Special. And it's debated as to who actually wrote this treatment. And when reading it, it does feel decidedly Lucas. And when you look at those old Ralph McQuarrie concept pieces, it makes sense that George would have floated this 5-page treatment to his key collaborator on A New Hope.
When you read through the treatment, George Lucas has a Jules Verne quality. He sees the future, whether it is an iPad or virtual reality, this idea of this kind of walking through a teleporter and being able to be in a different spot. But then there are other things that are so decidedly weird, like Raquel Welch? Guest star Raquel Welch volunteers for the job and leaves to intercept the starship. So Raquel is playing a starship officer, which is already odd because most Imperial officers are British, and she's going to infiltrate the Starship Musica to stop the Life Day celebration. Raquel, under the guise of telling Lumpy a story with dance and gestures about what drives a spaceship, dances her way into the power supply room and screws everything up. This idea that Raquel Welch is doing some performance art, Avon Ailey kind of, she's describing how a spaceship works through dance? There's a lot of questions to be had here. Look, who am I to judge? But in reading this, it feels like, hey, a nerdy guy who has maybe a crush on Raquel Welch. He's like, maybe I get to meet her. Maybe she'd be impressed by me. Maybe we'll hit it off. We'll go get a sandwich, nothing weird.
We spent one full 12-hour day working with George Lucas, and that was worth everything. I mean, he was the most intense, most focused person I had ever met. I mean, we were so into it that I forgot about lunch, and that's infrequent for me. Then he told us the mythology of the story. There was this Life Day.
I know your family's waiting. I know it's an important day. All right, we'll give it a try.
The story was Luke and Leia and Han Solo were accompanying Chewbacca home to his home planet for Life Day, which was a holiday George invented.